Good afternoon, everyone. A Wednesday edition of On Cue coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the SR 1029 FM The Game studios. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are powered by our wonderful friends over at SR 1029 FM The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Check us out on the AUDACY app. As I mentioned, your host is always Rich Quinones. Very easy to do to get social with us at Rich Q on Q on X and IG, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Of course, Rumble, Kicks, Millions, and a boatload of other entities and channels as well. We are on the YouTube channel. First and foremost, appreciate all the new engagement from you guys and the new subs. You guys are fantastic. If you enjoy and like to comment, definitely keep subscribing to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. On this, the 11th of February, 2026. Oh my goodness. Hope everyone had a good Sports Tuesday. You're enjoying your Woosah Wednesday, as you guys know, pretty much. The viewing audience likes to challenge me and see how fast it takes for them to get under my skin. We've got a lot to dive into on this Wednesday. Tomorrow, Jonathan Marshall on the NBA, Costco on a little college hoops. John Bueller on Friday. We're going to start to creep into baseball, obviously, with pitchers and catchers. A lot of baseball to dive into. Steve Gardner, hopefully next week as well. I did want to, now that the NFL season is officially done, I mean, obviously we know it's a sleeping giant. It's 24/7, 365. I kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit. A lot going on in the NBA. There is just absolutely a lot going on in the NBA right now. And, you know, you start to, after a while, there's certain reasons why the NBA product suffers. There's kind of reasons why the NBA product is not very good. And we've seen a little mixed bag with everything this season in the NBA. So obviously the NBA comes down with the suspensions to Stewart, Durant, Bridges, Diabate from Monday's Brawl. Another example of the NBA, very soft in how they handle certain punishments, very lax in their discretion when it comes to suspensions, punishment. Certainly not like the NFL in protecting the shield. It's kind of a free-for-all. The fact that Detroit center Isaiah Stewart got suspended for 7 games and 3 other players were penalized is an absolute joke. But that's where we're at with the NBA. And I'm not even as angry or as annoyed with those lack thereof suspensions, right? I mean, so Stewart and Durant's going to miss tonight's game against Toronto. Bridges and Diabate will be out, as well as the Hornets take on the Atlanta Hawks. And look, it's all about, perception, optics. So you got a player in Isaiah Stewart who's been suspended 5 times, including once for the altercation he had with LeBron James back in 2021. He was suspended twice last season. So all we hear about repeat offender, repeat offender, repeat offender, and you're going to slap him with a 7-game suspension, which, again, it's not even a harsh penalty. And the NBA comes out, the league comes out and says, well, this is because of your repeated history of unsportsmanlike acts. Really? I mean, you're getting in fisticuffs, you're leaving the bench. You've done this multiple times over the last several years, but that's not even why I'm annoyed with the NBA today. That's not even remotely why I'm annoyed with the NBA today. So last night, with the All-Star game right around the corner, which we will get into, because obviously some people have these genius friggin' ideas on how to make the All-Star game a little more viable. These genius ideas on how to make the All-Star game a little more interesting, right? Which we will get into, just these asinine takes. But last night, the Lakers decide to pretty much sit every friggin' player. And this is the other problem we have with the NBA and this crap narrative of load management. You had the Lakers and the Spurs. That is still a marquee game. That is a marquee game in the NBA. I don't care how you slice and dice it. Spurs, Lakers, marquee game. It is. It really is. And I understand, the Lakers, they're 8, 9 games over 500. The Spurs are off to a great start, 37-16. Well, with the win last night. But you have Wembley, and let us get through all the Lakers players. I mean, let's just go through it, right? You got Luka, you got LeBron, you got Rivers. Here we go. Star-studded attraction. And yet, LeBron James, who, oh, by the way, his all-star streak came to an end, sat out because of left foot arthritis. Luka sat out because of a left hamstring strain. Austin Rivers, left calf injury management, whatever the frig that is. Marcus Scott, right ankle soreness. Are you frigging kidding me? DeAndre Ayton, right knee soreness, also did not participate. So now we're sitting out games because we're frigging sore? We're sitting out games because maybe we got a little cool, little cold, little temperature, little bug, little summer cold, little stiffness, little soreness. LeBron's sitting out. That's his 18th game in the season. So it's impossible for him to reach the 65 game threshold to be required eligible for the league's annual awards, which, again, whoop-de-doo. Who friggin' cares? But this is utterly ridiculous. It's a marquee game. You know what you're doing? You're doing a disservice to the fans. I mean, you want star power. Isn't that what you want? The NBA thrives. The NBA, again, is all about star power. It's all about star power. When you don't have those stars on the floor, that is a problem. It's a flat out problem. So if I'm getting ready to go and I want to have one of these games and I see Wemby and I see, Fox, LeBron, Rivers, Smart, Bridges, OG, Cat, Embiid, Maxey, the list, Joker, the list goes on. And these guys aren't playing. I'm pissed off. I'm upset. SGA. I mean, that's a horrible look. And look, you knew they were going to get blown out. They were undermanned last night. They got waxed by 30-something odd points. I think San Antonio put up a $136. Wemby was a beast. He had 40. He was 13-20 from the floor. Everyone scored. Harrison Barnes got into the mix. I mean, everyone friggin' scored, I think, except one player on San Antonio. And the irony is this. The Lakers do this against San Antonio, and San Antonio is basically the franchise that started all this nonsense years ago with the load management, thanks to Greg Popovich. That was all his doing. Parker, Ginobili, Duncan, that's all his doing. But you have to be out there. You have to. You have to be out there if you are the stars in the NBA. And if you're JJ Redick, you got to have these guys on the floor. You have to. It's not even up for debate. The NBA sells itself. The NBA pushes itself. The NBA markets itself around what? Stars. Recognizable faces. So I'm going to these games. I mean, back in the day, listen, you're going floor seat. You're going to the Sixers and the Bulls. You better see Iverson. You better see Jordan. The Lakers and the Bulls, you better see Kobe and Shaq. Lakers and the Kings, you better see these guys out there. The Knicks and Indiana, I better see Patrick. I better see Reggie Miller. I don't want to hear any more about the load management in the NBA. It's a friggin' disgrace. It's not like these guys are flying Spirit. It's not like these guys are, having to worry about layovers and sleeping in Motel 6s. These guys have so much at their disposal because they make a boatload, a shitload of money. They can bring a traveling chef if they want, a guy to massage their friggin' feet. They can do whatever the hell they want. And we're worried about load management. Load management. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing in the NBA where the product stinks, it's watered down, nobody plays any defense, it's Matador defense, it's all about Olay. That's a horrible look last night by JJ Redick. It really is, because you're doing the fans a disservice. And then you got to deal with the nonsense that is the All-Star weekend. And I got to get into this because, listen, I'm all for having an opinion. I'm all for trying to upset the apple cart here. But what the hell, what the frig is Nick Wright? And I just saw this come across the wall. I had to look at it. I don't even listen to half these jackass clowns. What are you saying? What are you doing? Talking about all-star game festivities and how we can kind of get a bump ratings. I mean, did you hear the latest? Did you hear the latest from Nick Wright? Forget about the PC. He's got a way to kind of ignite ratings in an otherwise just boring weekend. It's not like it was where you had the dunk contest, the three-point contest, you had the All-Star game that actually they played somewhat defense back in the day before it really got wide open and crazy. Nick Wright, here's his suggestions. Ready? You know what? Quote, PC headlines be damned. White guys versus black guys. I'm telling you right now, guys would play effing hard. There would be a real edge to the game. Really? Is that, I mean, is that the talking point we're going with? It absolutely, it's just an asinine jackass take. I get it. The All-Star game is synonymous with lazy ass play because no one wants to get involved in that game because the NBA season is long. It's Matador defense, it's little defense, and then you get what? The alley-oops, you get the fast break, you get the transitional buckets, you get a wide open game, you get about 5,000. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns will love the All-Star game because you can shoot it from beyond the arc like 16,000 times. And the problem is the NBA is trying to change they're trying to reinvent the wheel. So let's just basically try to throw off the viewers, or let's try to engage the viewers. Let's try to capture and captivate the viewing audience. 3-team round robin tournament, right? US versus world teams. Then you have the 4 squads, the OGs and the young stars and the global stars. And no one cares about that crap. And no one certainly is going to watch or play harder if it's whites against the blacks, which is the dumbest comment I've ever heard. Like, scrap it. Seriously. Just scrap the whole weekend, period. Just scrap it. And then he goes on, he kind of clarifies the white players will get all the Eastern Europeans. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you can't teach dumb. You really can't. And some of these comments sometimes from these talking heads, it's utterly, like, I'm just wondering, do you actually think before you speak? Like, I understand you want to have a debate. You want to talk about the load management and what's good for the game, what's bad for the game. Scrap the All-Star game. Scrap these All-Star games. They're meaningless. They're absolutely meaningless. What, these leagues cannot tolerate, they won't sustain, they won't be able to get through a season if they don't have an All-Star game? I mean, it's the crap I've been hearing. I mean, Solitaire, listen, he must know I'm a big Sam Darnold fan. He's got Sam Darnold now top 3 in the NFC as a quarterback. What are we doing? I'll say top 10, 11, 12. But some of the takes over the last 48 hours, people smoking. What are we doing? A lot of smoking and joking? You guys taking a little shroomies? You high with Nasca, whatever the hell Aaron Rodgers is doing? Sipping on a little layup? I mean, these takes are horrible. Horrible. Whites against the black. Shut up. The game itself stinks. There's really nothing you can do to attract more eyeballs. And all these solutions, like, that's why we have the Olympics when we see the USA, when we see the men's basketball team. Like, everyone thinks there's this again, this easy way to fix the all-star game. I mean, again, you're not going to have these guys participate, right? Or make at least two current all-stars participate in each contest on set. They're not doing that because that's basically, these guys don't want to do with the dunk contest anymore, the skills challenge. You're watching a kid winning the dunk contest that's playing in the G League. The 3-point contest. I understand you're trying to mix and match and you're trying to make it unique. You can't. There is no star power in the slam dunk contest. There hasn't been star power for 20-something odd years in the slam dunk contest. There just hasn't. So this whole, the U.S. and the world pay the winning team? No. Like, again, that's why you have the in-season cup for some of these guys, the NBA Cup for these guys to make some more money. Just get rid of it. Get rid of the skills challenge. Get rid of the competition. Scrape the whole friggin' thing and just give them an extra day. Why? Because they're bitching and complaining about load management. Just scrap it. Honestly, scrap it. There's no, you want to go ABA? You want to go, you get that steal and a 3 becomes a 4, a 2 becomes a 3. You got a red light? Maybe that'll draw a little interest. I don't know. I mean, hell, then it'll be about 260 to 254. I had guys tweeting at me, change to an 8-player tournament. You got to shoot in the same spot every time you come down the floor. You guys are reinventing the game. There's nothing there anymore. The product, you hear these guys on Inside the NBA and they're wondering why they're not getting their FaceTime on ESPN. And then, what more can we talk about? Like there are certain leagues that are driven by star power, right? Star power. And I'm telling you right now, like, it's just goofy talk when you sit there and say, we're going to rest these players. Well, if that's the case, scrap it. Right? Just scrap it. Just scrap it. It's just not even competitive anymore. It's not. It's really just not a competitive product. It is a tough watch. It's beyond a tough watch. All right, we'll open it up, get some comments as well. What do we got there? Man says, what in the world is this? What's that? GMS start time. Sixers and the Knicks. Knicks got pounded. Knicks got pounded the other night. I saw it. Sixers and the Knicks. Yep. New headphones. Who this? A.K. He 12 Man. A.K. Vince. A.K. Duval. A.K. Steeler Nation. Anyone complain about load management at this point is barking up the trees. Toothpaste is out of tube. No coming back. And then he comes in with his, what do we got here? Race conversation seems to trigger you. Not at all. Everything okay? I'm actually fine. A lot of people would tune in for Race Wars. I don't even know what that is. It was a discussion of football a couple years ago. I don't listen to that garbage. Sorry, but I'm fine actually. I don't know why you say trigger. I just think it's a stupid comment by Nick Wright. That's all. I just think it's stupid. It's not. No one's going to play harder if it's whites against the black, shirts against the skins. It's just a stupid comment. So, but I thought maybe you would actually come up with a better comment to start things off, though, Vince. Let me see. Tom and Summers Point Q. I don't like to agree with you, but yeah, that is pretty much one of the dumbest comments I've ever heard in my life. Sarge Q. I'm not going to sit there and say I would watch a game like that. I'm not going to tell you that's going to be intriguing, but the league needs to do something because you just mentioned the product is absolutely piss poor. It's a bad product. It is a bad product. The season is long. The playoffs are a grind. The NBA season ends in June, and you turn around, you have training camp in October. The NBA is trying to bank itself on bankable, marketable stars. But we know that the majority, some of these best players, some of these guys happen to be European descent, European players. If you look at some of these marketable guys, so it's like we've already kind of cornered that market. Like, what more can you do? Shorten the shot clock? I mean, honestly, the ABA back in the day, you had the red light. If you steal into the backcourt, a 2 becomes a 3, a 3 becomes a 4, but that was a wide open game. You're not shoring up the court. You're not shoring up the distance from the free throw line. You're not shortening up The 3-point shot, you're not going to pull it back anymore. You can't force these guys to play defense, is my point. You can't. And I understand the game is so different than 25, 30 years ago. But to suggest what some people are suggesting, it's not even like, it's just bad. It makes absolutely no sense. And it's not about, white, black, yellow, green, blue. It's just asinine comments. It's like the days where you actually played defense and the game meant something, kind of like the Pro Bowl in the NFL. It actually meant something. Like, when did all of a sudden everything just go by the wayside? When? It just makes no sense. Q, what the F am I looking at? This is not an all-star game, as you mentioned. No more social media influencers can talk that trash. I might poke my head in to watch a three-pointer dunk contest for a good laugh. All-star Saturday night needs to be boycotted. Agree with you. Agree. Like, scrap it. Scrap it. Kenzo chimes in. The NBA going full influential on the All-Star game is up there with one of the most out-of-touch desperate moves I've ever seen, as if the game wasn't already a joke. Yep. Yeah. Jason Q, thank you for bringing it up. The Lakers, what they did in Riddick, that's an absolute disgrace. If Adam Silver ever listens to your show, he's going to have to answer this bullshit tank and a load management. All-Star weekend, buddy. No Duncan, none of it. But you're right. Get rid of the weekend. I think you're going to have to. I think you're going to. I'm a big-time basketball fan. I love college and I love the NBA. But kind of like the Super Bowl, it's almost like a disinterested watch. That's the problem I have. Like, I want to, again, figure out, why in the world these players don't want to play. And the load management is just a disgrace. If you have a twisted ankle, if you got a busted shin, you got an issue with your calf, that's one thing. That's one thing, right? If you can't play, you can't play. Are you hurt or you injured? And that's the problem. And these players make substantial amount of money. They really do. They make hundreds of millions of dollars. I've been trying to get cute. No, not at all. I mean, it was just a stupid comment. That's why I glossed over it. Coach Rick says load management makes me sleepy. It's horrible. And you're a coach. Coach Rick is a coach. I mean, it is. It's bad. It's absolutely embarrassing. Max contract. Get out there. 75 to 85 games, 75 to 82 games, whatever the hell long the season is. Get out there and play. Do your job. Play both ends of the floor. It's a horrible, horrible product. It is. But me, I'm foolish and naive and dumb enough where I'm just going to keep watching. It's iso ball. A pick and roll here and there. That's it. 1-on-5, 1-on-4. Let's have a fast break. 1-on-3. And the guy chucks up a 3. I'm sorry. If you're not playing, I'm not watching. That's it. I'm just, now, does the NBA care if I don't? They don't. But I need you to play, is my point. I need you to play. I watch so much of the NBA constantly, but I'm not a fan of what they're doing. I'm not a fan of the poor quality. I'm just being realistic. Like, I can love the sport, which I do. I love calling games. I love calling games for different leagues. I love calling games overseas. I love college basketball. I'm entrenched. St. John's pulling off the upset against UConn, then having a dogfight in overtime against Xavier the other night. I was locked into Pitino Bowl. I love watching the Knicks. I do, but it's a bad product. Like, both sentiments, thoughts can be true. It pains me. It pains me. Jody Q, I know you're a historian, but let's be honest. It's not going back to the 80s and the 90s, brothers. I'm not saying that it is. I wish sometimes it would. I really do. Maybe that's, a romantic thought. I wish. But all I'm saying is this. For a league that has had so many dicey issues, right? I mean, I didn't even get into Giannis yet, or Giannis. I didn't get into that yet. With his relationship with the betting app, which I feel, are we just glossing over this? It's just the league. Adam Silver wants to be this forward thinking commissioner. So you get a brawl the other night, you suspend a guy that is a repeat offender 7 games. That's not sending a message. You frown upon the betting element, but yet you want to push the betting element across all these platforms when it comes to the NBA. All of them. All of them. That's what you want to do. I mean, it just, you want the trends, you want the line, you want to, Adam Silver loves the fact that there is betting available. But yet, when players get pinched, you're nowhere to be found. You're nowhere to be found. Like you're almost as bad as Manfred. Now, Adam Silver tends to like the sport of basketball, where we know Manfred can't stand baseball. But now you have this situation with Giannis and the sports betting app, and no one is diving into this. No one is talking about this. Like everything, we always talk optics, and we always talk about optics and perception in sports. Okay. So you've got all the gambling issues going on, and everything in the NBA. Everything in the NBA. So Giannis now invests in this Kalshi. It's basically he's a minority shareholder in a company that is trying to position himself as a disguised as a betting platform, regardless of how it brands itself. And last year they appointed Trump Jr., right? And I mean, again, wherever you kind of hang your hat, that the president is a controversial figure. That's factual, right? And now they bring in the kid as a strategic advisor. Kevin Durant was also listed as an investor in the company. So what this company does is they market themselves as it's described as a prediction marketplace. So if you know anything about that, and I'm not, even if you do it with stocks, but in gambling or anything that has the form of gambling, and stocks, if you're doing trading, I mean, there's a gamble with it, but you're speculating. That's all that is. I'm speculating on the outcome of future events. So it can be across politics, who the next president's going to be, entertainment, who's going to win a Grammy, and sports. And now what they've been able to do, they've hedged this platform, because all these scenarios that they throw out there, they basically pigeonhole it with scenarios of yes or no answers. So basically it's potential scenarios, yes or no. And then if you go on, you see all these prices go up and down, and if I'm a user, I can pay. I can basically, if I start to dabble in that and I start to buy in a little stock on an event that I think it's going to play out like A, B, or C, it fluctuates based on what we are. We're driving the market, and it's going up and down. It's all about perceived probability of an outcome. Or let me correct myself, perceived probability of an outcome occurring. Now, here's the problem with having an NBA player have equity or stake or a partnership or any type of branding opportunity involved with that platform. Because prior to the NBA draft, this platform handled about 23 million in activity ahead of the NBA trade deadline, which again was tied to what player? Giannis. Speculation about where he might go or if he wasn't going to get traded. That is a horrible look. The optics are troubling. Seriously. And when we talk about a player that you guys pointed out, all he did was talk during the offseason and leading up to the trade deadline. We heard 4 or 5 teams, Minnesota, Golden State, the Knicks, you even heard the Sixers, Miami Heat. So the player is adding fuel to the fire. The player is basically fueling speculation by allowing all these rumors to just circulate. So it's going to drive prices up. It's going to drive prices down. More people are going to invest. More people are going to spend their money on this platform. So again, the speculation is that this directly benefits a company in which he holds a stake in. So it's like, and the NBA is turning a blind eye to this. Do you not see a problem with this when we already know that the NBA has a major problem with sports betting? The NBA has a major problem with gambling. The NBA can't even police themselves. And you're going to allow, a top three player, a face of a franchise, a recognizable, marketable guy, an all time great be a part of this? And the other thing is, too, they can't sit there and they've been banned from other states and outlets. All right, we got comments coming in. I want to get into this. 305, a lot of comments coming in on this. Also, the load management. You guys have suggestions to fix All-Star Game weekend? All right, I would love to hear it, aside from what Nick Wright has to say, who makes no sense. All right, quick timeout. We're powered by our good friends over at Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. And, of course, Play It Again Sports. We'll be back in 30. All right, couple minutes past 3 o'clock hour on the East Coast. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at SR 1029 FM The Game. If you have the AUDACY app, download Coastal Sports Digital Network. You should be able to find and hear us. We're also on X, IG. Let me get to some of these comments as well. The ones that actually friggin' make sense. Mark and Wallyford chimes in Q. I'm kind of like you, though. I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s NBA, and you're right. The times are different. The game has totally changed. That marquee star power. My problem with the NBA is not the load management. My problem with the NBA occurred about 10 to 15 years ago when players just decided we're going to bolt and jump to other teams. Okay. I mean, that's fair. But the problem is the All-Star Weekend used to mean something, and it's now irrelevant. It really is. And like I said, I'm old man yelling at the class. This is not the game I grew up watching. It's just not. And you're talking to someone that calls almost 20 hours of games every weekend or every week in various leagues and overseas. I love the sport of basketball. When I watch the NBA, I get ugh. I mean, every friggin' thing is beyond the arc. Paris chimes in. Q. Couldn't agree with you more. This version of basketball sucks. Everything is a three. Teams are tanking before the All-Star break, not being shy about it. All-Star Weekend Q used to mean something. The players don't give a shit. And then you got the second apron and the Supermax, which I know you discussed, made it so teams that build the right way via the draft and the young core eventually penalized for doing so. Yes, well said. Couldn't have said it any better. Well said. Everything is a three. It's stop and pop. It's 1-on-3. There you go. All-Star Weekend. There's no juice. There's nothing to it. There's no competitiveness. Then just scrap the weekend. That's what I'm saying. Like, scrap the weekend. If these players are complaining that they're tired or they're banged up, then the last thing they want to do is hang out on a weekend and play in a game. That means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing at the end of the day. I hate the fact that these guys get paid. And you know what? To P's point, the other thing he said, I'm telling you, man, the other thing he literally said that stood out is that the players of yesteryear, they cared. They cared. They absolutely cared. Silverouts use history as his guide with suspension, malice at the palace, worse than other in our test. Nobody got 25 games. No, that's not accurate, actually. You're talking about a guy that has been suspended 5 times now, Vince. 7 games is nothing. I mean, you did it. No, not at all, man. I'm actually fine. I can't wait for tonight. I got 4 games to call. We're good. Got a couple new sponsors, new platform. We're good to go, man. I appreciate it. We're good to go. I just think the whole thing is that these players don't care. If they cared, they would play. If they were banged up, that's one thing. But the load management, I read off the list. The Sixers used to do it with Embiid. The Sixers used to do it with Embiid. It's embarrassing. If you're not playing, I'm not watching. Like, and like I said, it's just you guys. Some of you guys sit there and say, "Well, nobody cares anymore about the load management," right? Look, even go to NBA League Pass. It's a bad product. The quality's horrible. So you want to suck me in as a new fan, and I'm flipping around the dial, just like inside the NBA. The worst thing was for that to leave and go to ESPN. These guys get no airtime. And it was entertaining, and I enjoyed it. I absolutely enjoyed it. I don't enjoy it anymore. I really don't. Joe chimes in. I don't know what's with the comments today. Some of these guys are friggin' pricks. Well, it's far from the course. Don't worry about it. Omar chimes in. The Nick Wright thing. You think he was serious, or you think he was just trolling? No, I think he was serious. I think he was absolutely serious with his idea. And the other thing is too, let's also have this conversation. What was the sexy thing years ago, right? The whole thing was if you were a top 5 pick, an NBA, a lottery pick, right? That was huge. That was absolutely huge. And it was the draft, and we had our conversations. Now you have the guys, the one and done, the 2 years coming out early, watering down the college product. Now you also have this NIL crap where these players are playing in college and then they drafted, they want to go to the NBA, get back to college. You got the 2-way contract. You got the G League, which I'm sorry, does a horrible job of marketing. They do a horrible job of marketing. They really do. They brand themselves a whole different league. And they're all about developmental high stakes. There's 7 leagues in the States, 8 leagues in the States, 9 leagues in the States. All these leagues are pro-ams, semi-pro ball. These guys have played in the NBA. Some of these guys have played overseas. Some of these guys have played college at a high level. These guys were undrafted. Some of these guys think they're going to be able to get to the NBA. The reality is they're not. They're not. They're not. They're not. And the other thing is this. I'm telling you right now, a lot of these players, these leagues get very saturated and watered down. That's why some of these guys that were undrafted don't even want to try to go to the NBA. They rather go overseas where they can make, fast money. And look, you get the 10-day contracts in the G League. I understand it's a different animal. If you get signed, that's one thing. But some of these guys can go play in Israel, Turkey, Greece, over in Spain. They can play in different countries over in Morocco. They can make 6, 7, 8,000. They know they're never going to have an opportunity to play in the NBA at a high level. So they're going to play overseas and they're going to stretch their career out. They're going to be treated like a king. I mean, Stephon Marbury was a great all-time NBA player, a scorer. I think a tad overrated. Soon he goes to China. It's a different story. So we want to try to keep these players in-house, but we also understand that the European, the influence has also created this kind of buzz right now in the NBA because you're getting a lot of these players from Europe. When you watch the draft, some of these kids, they're not U.S. born. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but back in the day when you would watch an NBA draft, you would be like, I know every single solitary player. Every single player coming out. Every single player. I mean, even the most obscure drafts, 2000. You remember Kmart. You remember Kenya Martin. He was a beast. You remember Darius Smiles. You remember Marcus Fizer. Remember him from Iowa State, right? Mike Miller from Florida. Never met a shot he didn't like. You remember Jamal Crawford. They were all U.S. born players. They were all playing their 4 years in college. You got the college. That hurts because they come out. They're not ready. You have now all these players from Europe. So when you think, okay, let's just put it in perspective. So if we look at, let's just say, go back, I'll go back 2022. So it's a good draft. 2022, the NBA was defined by international dominance, right? You had Joker, you had Embiid, you had Giannis, you had Luka, you had Durant, and then Curry, okay? Point is, you have a lot of these players overseas. The younger fan, maybe the novice fan, they're not recognizable. Maybe they're too entrenched in college basketball. And some of these players they don't even know of that played over in Europe. That's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm talking about branding the product, marketing the product. The G League does a piss poor job. The NBA is supposed to be global, right? But the NBA is starting to kind of teeter in that MLB where I don't even know what kind of demographic or geographic they are trying to target. That is a major, major problem. Major problem. It's a major, major problem. The game can be so much better, but again, when you got your bigs that want to draw everyone out from beyond the arc, I don't want to see Embiid shoot. I don't want to see Cat shoot. I see this on different levels on a Saturday. I see this on different levels in different leagues. It's a bad, bad product. And what makes it worse is when the players who should be out on the floor to give the fans something to be entertained by, they're not because of, quote, load management. It is a major problem in the NBA. It is. It's a major problem. Can you imagine? You won't do it in the NFL because it's only a 17-week season. But can you imagine Patrick Mahomes sitting there saying, you know what, I have a cold today. I don't want to play. That's not happening. And I know it's apples and oranges because it's a short season and every game is magnified in the NFL. One quarterback going down in 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks can derail a whole season. The NBA is long. And I'm not suggesting they shorten the season. But you have playoffs, when they stretch it to 7 games, and then you have training camp in October, and then you blink and the league starts in November. So scrap All-Star Weekend. Scrap it. But have you seen the product? Have you seen how bad some of these teams are? The Eastern Conference has 4 teams, I believe, 5 teams that have won 30-plus games, okay? Now, out of those 5 teams, Boston is playing really good basketball without Tatum. The Knicks are, I think, plus 14 over 500, and they've got their players. And I think the Knicks can be a good team coming out of the Eastern Conference. Detroit is a young team. And I'm looking at Detroit like we looked at Cleveland last year. Cleveland, if you don't follow Cleveland, you probably can't name 2 or 3 players. Toronto is not very good, and the Sixers have their own issues. But then you look at the Western Conference, it's stacked. OKC, San Antonio, Houston, Denver. Even the Lakers are 9-10 games. Like, there's no balance. We already know. We already know no matter what in the Western Conference Finals, unless SGA goes down or Wemby goes down, it's going to be OKC and the Spurs. It's like it's a top-heavy Western Conference. It's a watered-down product that's magnified because it's more watered down across the board, and they play zero defense. On any given night, you can score $130. Now, if you like playing overs and you like that from a betting standpoint, that's fine. But for me, again, it's totally, totally, totally different. The Lakers were Showtime. The Celtics was all about everyone touching the ball. Jordan was Jordan, Pippen, everyone else, get out of the way. Detroit was all about that defense. Then you started to see a little bit more of the balance. I mean, think about the last team in the NBA. The last team in the NBA that didn't have a major bona fide star, and they won a championship. A bona fide star, and they won the championship. I mean, we all know the team. It was the Pistons. The Pistons didn't really have a bona fide, look out, here we go. They didn't. But that team was a balanced team. That team was a very good team as a collective group. Remember Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, you had Billups, you had Prince, you had Rasheed Wallace. They were good players, all stars, but you wouldn't sit there and say, oh my God, they were stars. You know, Hamilton was a very good player. And remember, they upset the Lakers. And that's going back to 2004. And I understand 20 years ago, the game has changed. The game has changed. It started to get a little more wide open. We saw it with those Lakers teams. Obviously, we saw it with Cleveland, not the bad teams LeBron dragged in. And then it was highlighted with what? Run and gun, here we go, Splash Brothers, Golden State. And I remember when Golden State was making their runs, you know, the one thing that it was fun to watch with Golden State is you can be up 20 against Golden State and you blink and all of a sudden they're up by 2. Or they're going to blow you out of the building. So yeah, the game has evolved. I understand that. I get it. The game has evolved. I'm not saying it hasn't. And it's a little more wide open, a little more perimeter shooting. The days of going to the basket or half-court offense or a hard foul, they're done. I'm just saying it is a tough watch. That's all. It's a tough watch at times. Even when I watch my Knicks, when I watched them last year in the playoffs, I couldn't stand when Cat was taking all these threes. It's just, it's a tough watch. Matt chimes in, Q, I didn't know that situation with the Bucks player and the betting app. You're talking about Giannis, obviously, and that's something we brought up. I'm a little surprised that the NBA has kind of turned a blind eye to this. It is the optics, the perception is really bad, especially when you have the trade deadline. And now I can kind of corner that market. And if I'm going to, tweet out or I shouldn't say tweet out, but if there's reports being leaked from my camp that Minnesota's interested in me, the Lakers are interested in me. I'm just throwing teams out there. Miami, the Sixers, the Knicks. Now I can kind of use that to my advantage, or the people involved in this app, this platform, can use it to their advantage. Because he's getting a kickback. He is. I mean, it's just, let's just be honest, right? And that's just the bottom line. We know that. But the NBA doesn't really have any rhyme or reason right now. I'm sorry. You don't suspend that player for 7 games when he's a repeat offender times 5. You can't allow a face of the NBA to be in bed with a betting app. And that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And you certainly can't have marquee players, people going to games, spending their hard-earned money, resting. It's an overall bad look. So it's all compounded. Like Stewart's shouldn't get 7 games. Bridges shouldn't get 4 games. It's ridiculous. He got 7 games. He left the bench. But as I said, this guy's been doing it for years. He's a punk. He's been doing it for years. Should have got tagged to at least 20, 25 games. That's how you basically handle all that. You do it 3, 4, 5 times, once or twice, that's enough. Right? Once there's an accident, 2's on me. I mean, come on. And Silver, when he was asked too about the gambling stuff, just froze up like a deer in headlights. He froze up like a deer in headlights. He doesn't want to touch that. He doesn't. He does not want to touch that. Monday Marcus chimes in, Q, why is there so much backlash with this? Because, again, you're talking about a platform that saw about like 23 million in activity prior to the NBA trade deadline. So if I've got equity, if I've got skin in the game with that, and I'm on the block, I can manipulate the market. It's almost like inside trading. So the optics, Marcus, are beyond troubling. I mean, there's really no other way around it. Like, I understand under the NBA CBA, prediction markets are treated pretty much, from what I gather and what I research, to like traditional betting companies. So if you go per the rat ship, the mothership, players are permitted to sign endorsement deals with companies like this, but there's, quote, strict limitations. I just think with everything going on in the NBA, with the Porter issue, with the Rozier issue, right, with the Billups stuff, it's not the best look. It's not. And then you got the stuff going on with college, where now a lot of players over the last several weeks, everyone's going back and watching film on some of these teams and some of these players about point shaving. I mean, the Billups thing, once Billups, well, we already know he basically is singing like a canary. That's kind of been swept under the rug, that whole scandal. And you got to also, if you want to connect the dots, who didn't start the season off playing? LeBron James, right? The whole connection, James, Jones, here we go. We're buddies, in Cleveland, filtering information. It's just a bad look. It's just a bad look. It really is. And it's unfortunate because there's ways you can partner up with these betting apps and do it the right way. Do it the right way. Like the NFL, once the NFL moved a team to Vegas, all bets were off. The NFL, that for years it was taboo to sports bet and gamble. The NFL is a walking gambling billboard. I mean, you can't even, you got guys coming on from DraftKings prior to kickoff talking about a $5 parlay turning into $50, and then the kickoff occurs. You see this bottom scroll with the odds and the in-game live betting. I mean, it's just, every sport is in bed with gambling. And I do a gambling pod every week. Been doing it for the last, 15 something odd years, talk gambling on the air. I get it. I worked in the industry. I know exactly how it works. I understand. I totally understand where they're making their money, the wager requirements. I understand all of that. But now you're almost getting to the point where we're overlooking the product because in the back of our mind, we're watching the games, but we're watching to see if there's any type of suspicious behavior. Where you see that line is 8 in the NBA, and all of a sudden it's a 9-point cushion. You get the BS 3-pointer. Yeah, we're going to count the bucket. In the NFL, again, rushing yards for the quarterback. He's taking a knee if they're ahead. Now all of a sudden I've just subtracted 3 yards. How the hell did the books know that? I mean, it's just, they know this. You can't beat the book. You just can't. They got it down to a science. They have it down to a science. They use that to their advantage. And this what this platform does, it can manipulate that betting market. And when you have a Hall of Fame player who's attached himself to it, the optics perception, it raises more eyebrows because of what's going on over the last year with the NBA from a gambling standpoint. And having these players get busted, the scandal, the illegal poker, the gambling on games, the point shaving. It's just all in all a terrible look for the NBA. It really is. And Adam Silver, who's supposed to be a commissioner, that is a forward-thinking commissioner, he basically hides in his office. He wants nothing to do with this. He really does. He wants nothing to do with this. He doesn't come out. He just does not come out. And the other thing too is, and it's interesting because Madigan chimes in Q. I understand the low management, but I think tanking is the worst. Tanking is horrible. Tanking is bad. And we never really looked at it until the last several years ago, where the product was horrible and teams are winning 8, 9, 10 games. And by the way, you got the Sixers also to thank for that. It's different when a player goes down. When Robinson went down, the Spurs had no stars. So Robinson goes down. Here we go. We're going to lose 40, 50, 60 games, and you draft Duncan. You lost a great player. But we know what the NBA does. We know what some of these franchises do. They figure out a way to kind of hedge. They figure out a way to just discreetly put out a piss poor product, and yet they think they're getting it over the fans. What the Sixers did was an absolute disgrace. It was an absolute disgrace what they did. And they were still charging, premium when you're talking about, the whole process, right? Remember the process? Trust the process. It was basically this multi-year plan. And yet every year when it fell on its ass, when it fell on its face, it was like, well, one more year, one more year, one more year, one more year. It's like, okay, what are we doing here? Like it was on and on and on. And that was hinky. That was hinky. Let's lose these games on purpose, trade players, hoard picks. And what did it do? 2016 to 2013 to 2016, the Philadelphia 76ers won 47 games. They were 47 and 199. So they draft Embiid, number 3, in 2014. Then they get the bust of all bust, Ben Simmons, in 2016, still trying to make a comeback, whatever the hell he's doing. And the thing is that the NBA was so sensitive to that, they had to jump in. They had to jump in. Now you get the injuries. Last year, George, Embiid, here we go again. Different animal right now with Embiid playing a little bit and then George with the 25-game suspension. But you're not going to, the tanking kind of, it woke the league up. It kind of spooked the NBA. It did. It really did. It did. They were like, all right, we can't have this. This is really bad. But they kind of allowed it. And when they finally said enough is enough, that's when they stopped, that's when they stepped in. And they're like, all right, this is really bad. So yeah, to your point, the low management bad, the tanking is bad. I still don't believe you can tank in football. Quarterback goes down, you're in trouble. It just happens. It's a different sport. It's a more violent, more physical sport. Guys are more prone to injuries if you're not tackling, if you're not playing hard, if you're being laps out there. But the NBA, you can put on a horrible product and some people would just, they'll overlook it. And I think what the Sixers did, it was such an extreme tank that you couldn't ignore it. You just couldn't ignore it. And we do see it on different levels. We do. And that also hurts the product. And look, I'm not even going to go back, and I'll be the first one to tell you. Do I believe that the lottery was rigged for the Knicks in '85? Yeah, I do, because they wanted the Knicks to be relevant in that market, and it was a historic franchise, and there was maybe a little bit of a cahoots there with the Knicks getting Patrick Ewing, right? I mean, listen. I'm not going to tell you. I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not going to tell you when that happened. I mean, I was a kid and I was like, all right, this is great, because I remember, watching this guy in Georgetown. He was a beast. And I wanted the Knicks to be good. I really did. And the Knicks were a bad franchise. 84, they went 7 games against the Boston Celtics, but you just knew that the NBA wanted to have a great player in that market in Madison Square Garden and that draw. And that's why everyone believed that, hey, all right, here we go, 85 draft. There's something going on in that draft, right? The lottery draft, right? I mean, by the way, think about that draft. So you had Patrick Ewing, right? Georgetown, Hall of Famer. Chrissy Mullins, St. John's, Hall of Famer. Karl Malone was drafted 13, right? La Tech, Louisiana Tech, Hall of Famer. Joe Dumars, McNeese State. I think he was a top 20 Hall of Famer. Other than that, you had a couple little handful of all-stars, and no one else really stood out. But the Knicks got their man, and unfortunately, they were never able to win a championship. All right, 3:32, quick timeout. We'll come back, a couple minutes to play with, a couple more comments. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. Of course, fresh roasted coffee, 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. That'll be in the show notes. You can check it below as well. And as always, don't forget, you can check us out on SR 1029 FM, The Game. All right, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. All right, a couple of minutes to play with before we get out of here. 3:33 on a Woosah Wednesday edition of On Q. We pull them up in a second as the audio likes to flame out all over the place. What else is new? All right, let me get to some of these comments. T chimes in. Q, I remember the process, and it's been what, 10, 13, 14 years. It's unbelievable. Think about this. The Lakers average 5 more wins per year, and we're top three in the draft lottery each season of the process. Interesting. That's an interesting little tidbit. I did not know that, T. Thank you very much. I hate it. I absolutely hated the process. I hated the process. I just could not understand how people were on board, right? Because they thought for the greater good, the franchise was going to be better, and they still haven't been able to get out of the second round. I still maintain this. The Sixers never recovered from Kawhi Leonard's shot. Never. Joe chimes in. Q, you mentioned that 2003-04 Pistons teams, and you are 100% correct. As a lifelong baller, I would look at that team as the most balanced team in NBA history to win a championship. Not a lot of egos on that squad. And oh, by the way, head coach Larry Brown. That was a very good Pistons team. They got into a dogfight with the Nets. Remember the Nets in the early 2000s? And they had that back-to-back finals appearance. Remember that Jason Kidd? That was a fun team. And I wasn't a Nets fan, but I believe they played the Lakers and then San Antonio. But they had a great run in the 2000s. But that Pistons team, 2003-04, they got through the Nets in 7. They got through the Pacers in 6 because it meant a great deal to Larry Brown. And then they upset that Lakers team. That series was not even competitive. They beat the Lakers in 5 games. Chauncey Billups was the MVP. Go figure. But that series was not even competitive. They won the first game. The Lakers pulled away in the second. Then the Pistons blew them out in the third. They had a couple big buckets, I think, by a Hamilton in game 4. And then game 5 was a laugher. Game 5 was a laugher, and they beat them in 5 games. But that Pistons team, they were very balanced. But those Nets teams were really, really good. What year was it that they got? I think it was, you know how I remember, because it was right when Entourage was starting. It was right when Entourage was starting. I think it was like 2001, 2000, right? No, 2000 they were bad. 2001, 2002, they got to the NBA Finals. They either lost in 5 or got swept by the Lakers. Then they got back to the NBA Finals and they lost to the Spurs. Those net teams were really, really good. What do we got here? Glenn EHT chimes in. Q, you got to go all the way back. The Splash Brothers kind of started this off. I understand exactly what you're saying, but again, it's more or less a 3-point shooting game. It's more or less a predicated game that's predicated on the perimeter shot. Guys are not going to the basket anymore. No, I mean, listen, those Golden State teams were great teams. Thompson, Curry, no doubt. Curry kind of when Curry got drafted, and people were overlooking Curry coming out of the draft, which if you watched him in college in Davidson, he was just a prolific scorer. That team, that was made for Steph Curry. The way they wanted to get up and down the floor and run, it was a perfect match. And they were a very good team. I mean, that was a dynasty. That was a dynasty. The Warriors were a dynasty, man. You had Curry, Thompson, Green, right? Would they win 4 championships, 8 years? To me, that's a dynasty. And yes, they were. You can debate, argue, you can pull up all the stats. Statistically, they were probably the most lethal 3-point shooting team, maybe in NBA history. Maybe in NBA history. I mean, they were that good. Anytime you watch that team, you just felt they can be down 15, 20 points and they were going to figure out a way to come back. And if you go back to that dynasty, that franchise and the Warriors, they had a little bit of a, cup of coffee success in the 70s. And then the 80s, remember that run TMC, right? Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chrissy Mullins. Again, they made some runs in the playoffs, but they were a very bad team. They drafted Curry, they drafted Thompson, they made some moves, they brought in Kerr, and then everything basically went their way. I mean, they they were a great dynasty. They are not that team anymore. That run has ended, right? You're not going to get a run like that by that franchise. You're not going to get a run like that in the NBA unless we see something remarkable from OKC. If OKC gets back to the NBA Finals, they win it again. Maybe they get back next year, they lose it, but they win 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, and they're winning their 55, 60 games. SGA winning MVP left and right. Then maybe we can sit there and say they're the next great dynasty in the NBA. 1 year does not make a dynasty. We forget Denver won the championship a couple years ago, right? 1 year does not make a dynasty in the NBA. It just doesn't. You can have a nice run. The NFL, I think, is a little different. The NFL, if you go back to back and you get back there in 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, to me, that's a mini dynasty. What Kansas City did was a dynasty. The NBA, you could have this long stretch where, all right, I need to see 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6, kind of like in baseball. What the Dodgers are doing, that's a dynasty. If the Florida Panthers win it again, three-peat, that's a dynasty. I think in the NFL, it's so hard to win back to back. Free agency, injuries, again, just the nature of the sport, right? 17 weeks, you can easily get bounced. Quarterback can go down. So much can happen, so many extraneous variables. NBA, a longer season, a little more opportunity, even though it's a grind. Playoffs can be a burden, playoffs can be a grind. Guys can get hurt, right? Guys tire out, hence some of the BS load management we're already seeing, 40 something odd games into a season. But it's if you look at all these four sports, the toughest, I believe, to create a dynasty is in the NFL. Baseball, for the most part, you're locking in guys for 8, 9, 10 years. Same thing in the NHL, and pretty much the same thing with these max contracts now in the NBA. NFL, it's a little different, man. You win it once and you're a free agent, chances are you're not going to sign. You want to go somewhere else, cash in. Now, you're not going to go to California, but certainly you'll probably go to Florida. And you have a lot of trades, players get released, retired. Rosters are never the same. Like Seattle has impending free agents. They're not going to bring back the exact same roster that just dominated New England Patriots. But it's tough to do. I credit any team that can get, to a championship, win a championship, get back to a championship, win it multiple years, win, multiple times. I mean, even those Yankee teams, I remember, those Yankee teams, they were unbelievable. But I also knew the run was going to end eventually, and they had a great run. They really did. They had a fantastic run, those Yankee teams did. But I also knew ultimately it was ending. Guys retire, Torrey kind of outstayed his welcome, free agency, and then you lose a 7-game series, or you get upset in the World Series by a Florida team, you choke against the Boston Red Sox, everything kind of comes to an end. Everything kind of comes to a head. So you got to take advantage of it when you have the opportunity. You have to. You have to. Can you remember when Adam Silver stepped in to control all the tanking issues, but yet, to your point, he's still allowing what's going on in the NBA with betting? I still think there's a major scandal that's going to unfold. I'm not going to say, so someone asked me the other day, is Adam Silver the worst commissioner in sports? Say what you want about Roger Goodell, but the NFL is a monster. And the owners love Roger Goodell because Roger Goodell makes them money. Rob Manfred, I believe, really does not care about the sport of baseball. Rob Manfred will go on the air and tell you he cares about the sport of baseball. I don't believe he does. I just do not believe he really cares about the fans. I think Roger Goodell does care about the fans because he's all about protecting the shield and the optics. Adam Silver, I don't know. I'm a little torn on Adam Silver because I know he wants to be this, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of in the forefront of things, right? But the other thing is too the whole Kawhi Leonard situation, right? Um, I think Adam Silver is part of me thinks he's one of those guys where I don't even care about it until you get caught. That's what I think. Seriously, that's what I think. Stoney chimes in. Q. Ultimately, with this Giannis situation and the sports betting, I think there's going to be a lot of investigation outside of the NBA. I imagine the NBA is going to wait until all evidence is presented. When all evidence is presented, when you're talking about not only this, but Giannis, Kawhi, the Clippers, and the betting scandal. I think the bigger issue is that the evidence is publicly available. So he's going back all the way to Kawhi, which we talked about a little bit. Heartless Moron, that's a great handle. The idea Silver has had with the high scoring games is entertaining. No, Q, it's not. I would rather watch players working extremely hard to score against a tough and very physical defense and watch players run real quick and then proceed to brick threes. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Third Son, I agree, Q, but they started on this path with Stern. Think Detroit versus Spurs finals. What year was that? Detroit and the Spurs. What year was that final? Got to pull that up. That was 2005. That was a 7-game series. Oh, yeah, that was a hell of a series. Now, see, that series harkened back to the late 80s, 90s. That was a bang-up series, man. They played defense. They bang, they bang, they bang. They played serious friggin' defense in that NBA Finals. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. See, I'm all, hey, I'll take that. I'll take that in a heartbeat. I'll take that in a heartbeat. That's classic. That's classic. 7 games, bang them up. I don't think any of those games, I don't think they scored over 100 points. Let me pull it up. First game, Detroit, San Antonio won 84-69. The second game, San Antonio won 97-76. So Detroit's down 2-0 already. The third game, Detroit wins 96-79. The fourth game goes over 100 points. That was a blowout, 102-71. The fifth game, 96-95. I remember that game. That was an instant classic, and so was game number 6. And then game number 7, the Spurs won by 13. One of those Big Shot Bob series. Robert Horry. He was, Robert Horry's not a Hall of Famer, but Robert Horry made some big buckets in his career, man. Even going back with the Rockets, people forget. He had some big shots in those finals against the Knicks. He did. Vernon Maxwell, Kenny Smith, game 7. But the Lakers is kind of where he cut his bones for being like the clutch guy. And then obviously San Antonio, he was unbelievable. He had some big shots. Big shots. But yeah, that's a great point. I remember that series vividly. Look, I get it. The NBA is never going to go back to that. They're not. But I would like, again, I don't want to see 135 to 130. I don't want to see 135 to 130. I don't want to see 140 to 138. I don't. It's a bad product. They need to fix it. All right, fast approaching 4 tomorrow on a Thursday. Jonathan Marshall's going to join me. And we'll talk more NBA. We'll start to look past the All-Star Game weekend. We'll get into the second half of the NBA. We will have Costco on. I believe Costco is coming on. Let me just double check. I want to get into a college hoops with Costco. A little housekeeping on football. Costco will be at 3:15, and Jonathan Marshall will be at 4. So we'll fire off again a little early. Check out the notifications on the YouTube channel. And again, don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at SR 1029 FM The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network, on X, on IG, TikTok links as well. We'll throw up some of those. And then, I got the final numbers too. You guys were asking yesterday. So here's your final numbers on the viewership. Super Bowl 60, second most watch all time with nearly 125 million. This is why you got to listen. You got to understand who you're listening to with certain media guys or networks. and the left and the right because they'll tell you different stories. 124.9 million viewers, NBC, Peacock, Telemundo, NBC Sports Digital, NFL Plus. That's based on official live plus same day Nielsen Big Data plus panel ranking as the second most watched show in U.S. history. Wow. That's crazy. Super Bowl 60 is the most watched show in the history of NBC Universal. And then we gave you the numbers yesterday on Bad Bunny as well. So again, the NFL just showing they reign supreme, period, right? It's funny, these numbers are so skewed with the halftime show. I'm seeing 128, then people are posting 50 million. It's like, come on, what are we doing? That's 60, 70 million off. Are you kidding me? You go on YouTube and you watch a show, it's already got 50 million views, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So again, everyone wants to kind of, maneuver the numbers, right? I think last year, Kansas City and the Eagles, that was like 127 million. That game stunk. That was 34-0. You blinked, right? After that pick six, 17-0, Cooper DeJean, that game is over, right? That game is absolutely over. Bad Bunny averaged 128.2 million. Kendrick Lamar, 133 in 2025. And then second place remains in the hands of Michael Jackson, 133.4, which was back in 93. And the third most watched performance was that of Usher, 2024, which drew 129.3 million, according to Nielsen data. Bad Bunny in the Super Bowl did break records in Spanish. Telemundo's audience peaked during the halftime show, averaged about 5.8 million viewers, making it the most watched in Spanish language television history. NFL is king, period. The NFL is always king. The NFL will always be king. All right, got to start wrapping it up. We got hoops later on. As I mentioned, Costco and Jonathan Marshall will join me on a Thursday. Check out the YouTube channel. We'll post some more shorts later on in the week. You can give me a follow on IG at RichQ on Q. And always thanks to you guys tuning in. Also, thanks to everyone on X, Kicks, Rumble, and the YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe to it. Busy Thursday, Friday. We will kind of look ahead to 2026. Yeah, the NFL season. I've got some bold predictions. We'll dive into it. We'll put a bow on everything that transpired over the last several months in the NFL. But tomorrow, a lot more NBA, a lot of college hoops, March Madness right around the corner, pitchers and catchers as well. We'll start to mix in and sprinkle in a little bit of baseball, kind of wet the whistle, as we like to say on Friday's show. All right, you guys have a wonderful Sports Wednesday. As always, be safe, be sound. Don't forget, we are brought to you by Three Brooks Bourbon, Playa Bowl in Belmar, played against Sports 2 locations in Deptford and Mount Laurel, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Get ready with tea. And you guys are great. Have a good Sports Wednesday, a Woosah Wednesday. We'll be back in the saddle tomorrow. As I mentioned, we'll probably fire off right around 2:45, 3 o'clock. Get the notifications cooking on the YouTube channel to follow along. You guys have a wonderful Sports Wednesday. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, mi día.